The Anker SOLIX F2000 has honestly become one of my favorite pieces of tech. It's made me rethink what's possible for my camping and outdoor adventures. It's given an immeasurable sense of relief for home emergencies, and after a year of ownership, I really don't think I could go without it. I also want to give a huge thank you to Anker SOLIX for sponsoring this week's video. They're running a ton of really great promotions right now on the F2000 and the rest of the SOLIX lineup for Black Friday and Cyber Monday, so check the link down below if you want to learn more. Pick one up for yourself. But we're going to be diving deep into everything today, going over some of the basic specs and all of the usage scenarios and why I've been loving this thing so much. Moving into some of the basics for the F2000, it has 2048 watt hours of capacity, and that is expandable with a couple of expansion batteries that they offer. It has 2400 watts of AC output with a 3600 watt surge. That's more than enough to handle just about any appliance you can think of. It's actually more wattage output than my entire circuit for my home office here, just to put things into perspective. You have 12 total ports on here. That's 4 AC ports, 3 USB-C ports, 2 USB-A ports, 2 12-volt car sockets, and 1 TT30 port for RV usage. You can actually plug your entire RV into this thing. Recharging is also incredibly fast. You can recharge it up to 1440 watts through AC power. That'll get you from 0 to 80% in an hour. They also have the option of charging via solar. You can get up to 1000 watts of solar recharging. The total weight is 67.2 pounds. It measures 20.7 inches by 15.5 inches by 9.8 inches. It's definitely a heavy unit, but you're getting a gigantic battery in return. One of my favorite features though on this is the built-in easy tow handle. It's almost like a telescoping luggage or a trolley handle that pops out of the side. It allows for very easy and fluid movement to move this thing around. The wheels on it are also pretty substantial. They measure 4.72 inches and have a little bit of a luggy tread on here. Even on, rocky terrain and grass and dirt and mud, it just makes things so nice and easy. On the exterior, you also have this ambient 3-level light bar. I found this to be extremely nice and convenient when camping. I've taken this out on winter camping trips and set it up in my tent to run a heater. It's great for camping, but potentially even better for power outages and things as well. It lights up a room pretty significantly for how small of a light it is. You also have a pretty nice bright display on here. This is super handy if you want to just do a quick check of the capacity and don't want to go through the iOS app. It works pretty well in bright and sunny conditions as well for visibility. So that about sums up all of the specifics and features and all of that stuff. In terms of usage, I've talked about this with a number of friends in my real life over the past year because I've been so excited about this. I legitimately talk about it with everyone I know. For my use case, it kind of boils into 2 separate categories. 1 for outdoor adventures and camping and that sort of thing, and 2 for, emergency situations in the home with power outages and things like that. Getting into the camping usage, this opens up so many amazing possibilities for camping trips. If you've been following along the channel over the past year, I've been able to do a ton of really fun stuff aside from just the traditional regular, car camping, tent camping type of trip. Having access to this much power fully off-grid is really incredible. Now, I had mentioned earlier the TT30 port for an RV. I don't have an RV. I'm typically a tent camper or a backpacker, but if you do have an RV, electric hookups in campgrounds can be really expensive, and traditional campgrounds are also kind of lame. In the Western US, we have access to a lot of really great public land that we're able to camp on, and being able to plug in your RV to this and go wherever, it saves money on electric hookups, and you're going to get way better campsites in return. So really great for RV usage, but even if you're not in an RV, I found a ton of really great uses for this. Big one that comes to mind for me was my winter camping trip I did, I think at the start of this year. I was able to plug in a space heater and run it in my tent, and it was glorious. Being able to have a heated tent in the middle of winter just made things much more pleasant. But there are a ton of more, realistic type of scenarios there aside from a space heater if you're not much of a cold weather camper. Being able to run an electric fridge or cooler is extremely nice. I've even used this with an electric hot plate to cook all of my meals. If you're in a location with a ton of really strict fire restrictions, that's something good to know. But there's also, a ton of other options. If you need a CPAP machine, you can run this for days and days and days with a CPAP. Say you want to bring an e-bike with you if you're on some trails. Possibilities are really endless here. It really just depends on your needs. Imagine having an entire home circuit and then some, whatever you'd want to plug in. I can imagine that being really great for kids. I did a video over the summer where I was able to plug in my entire workstation and desk and work off the grid and run this thing off solar. It would have worked indefinitely. I still have a plan for that down the road at some point to do an indefinite off-grid, workstation setup and just go live in the woods for a couple of weeks and make more YouTube videos. I think that would be really fun. The other pillar of usage for me over the past year for this has been for power outages and emergency situations at home. You cannot imagine the sense of relief that you have when you have friends with power outages and you've gotten power outages, and you can just kind of rest assured if the power goes out, for any reasonable amount of time, whatever you need to power is going to be able to be handled by this. I personally have had a couple of power outages over the past year since owning this, and it was really nice. One of which I remember I had a really tight deadline for a video I was working on. I was able to plug in my entire workstation like it never happened and just continue on working. Luckily the power wasn't out for very long, but it was just really nice to not have to stress about it in the slightest. It's also really comforting to know if the power did go out, I would be able to plug in my fridge like it never happened and keep all of that food from spoiling. I do have one other example that's fresh in my mind and recent. We had a friend's birthday party pretty recently planned. It was at their house, and the morning of the party, they completely lost power and they were all panicking what to do. Should we try and move locations? What are we going to do with this or that? I had my wife text them, we have this power station, just bring it with you, and they can plug in the oven to be able to cook all the food. They can plug in the TV to be able to watch whatever they want during the party. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, the power ended up coming back on, so they didn't end up needing to use it. But just being able to come in and save the day in that regard was incredibly satisfying. I also think there's really huge potential here for more professional work. If you're someone that works with power tools and being able to plug them in on the go without having to run 50, 100-foot extension cables, or even worrying if you have an outlet at all, a situation like that, this would be really great. But also for my specific experience, photo and video gear and equipment, I've done outdoor shoots in the past. It is an absolute nightmare trying to find power for big video lights and cameras and all of that stuff when everyone's depending on you to capture something specifically and you have to stress about that other thing. In summary, around the usage, it has just provided me so much fun in my camping and outdoor trips. And in terms of emergencies, it is an unbelievable sense of relief to know that everything that you have is covered in the case of a power outage. But getting into some of the extras here, because the F2000 is great on its own, but they do have a few other options for expansion that I've luckily been able to test as well over the past year. First and foremost being the expansion batteries. I've been using the BP2000 expansion battery. It actually doubles the capacity fully, so you get up to 4,096 watt hours of capacity. It's a little bit less expensive than having to buy two separate units. You just attach it on through a cable in the back and you instantly have double the capacity. It's super nice. I was actually checking before this video as well. Looks like they have another expansion battery called the BP2600 that's even larger. So you have that available to you if you want some additional capacity. But another thing I was able to test finally over the summer was the solar input. I've been using the Anker SOLIX, the PS400. It's a 400 watt solar panel. As someone that's never used solar panels before in any capacity, it was incredibly easy to set up and get going and using. Over the summer, I'd built out that portable, gaming workstation setup out by Mount Hood, off grid in the wilderness. Ton of fun, by the way, but I did the math on everything, and the input versus output with just using that solar panel, I could have stayed out there indefinitely. They have a few different angle options. You can kind of maximize the sun exposure, which is really nice. The unit is quite large when it's fully unfolded, but it folds down into a pretty reasonable compact size for storage. Overall, I've been really happy with both that and the BP2000 expansion battery. Everything you can do with the F2000 is fully controllable with the Anker Smart app. I've been using it throughout the entire year and it has been one of the most solid and consistent experiences that I've ever had with any of these, more customized apps for specific brands. You can essentially do whatever you want on the app remotely without having to touch the device itself. Everything's customizable. You can set the charging speeds as well if you don't have enough room on your circuit to get that full 1400 watts of recharge. Anything you can think of is there, and it's very easy and intuitive and smooth and reliable. And on the note of reliability, I know this is extremely cheesy, but the Anker products for me have always been extremely reliable. I've been a paying customer for like 15 years at this point, if not more. I'm not exactly sure. But this thing has performed perfectly as I would expect from just about any Anker product. It uses EV grade lithium iron phosphate batteries. It's rated up to 3,000 charge cycles with a 10-year lifespan. You have a 5-year warranty on here. Everything with the physical build quality is excellent as well. I love the finishings in terms of design, but also durability. It is held up. I've beat this thing up time and time again this entire year. And as I finished recording this, I realized the video is sponsored and I realize how cheesy I am being through this entire video, but I legitimately don't have any complaints or critiques with this. It's worked perfectly, exactly as intended and advertised, and that is the best thing you can be when you want something that is dependable for off-grid scenarios or emergency situations. So that is the biggest praise I can give. I legitimately don't have any complaints, sponsored or not. If you want to check it out for yourself, be sure to check the Black Friday promotion links down below. Again, they're running a ton of really great sales. I'll be around in the comments too if you have any questions about it or concerns or anything. Happy to chat. Like I said, I've been bugging everyone in my real life about this all year and trying to convince them to get one because it's amazing. Thank you all for sticking around and watching the video. Let me know what adventures you want me to go on with this thing next year. I have more ideas that I'm planning and working on. I'd love to hear if you have any down there. So thanks again, and I'll talk to you in the next one.